It's the Mike Francesa Podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
Baseball's back, and I get a chance to chat with Bobby V, which, you know what, folks, whether we were fighting or not fighting or whatever, I always love talking baseball because there are few people who know baseball better than Bobby V. Nobody can argue that. I mean, he has an opinion on everything and knows the game inside and out, and he is part of the Bet Rivers family, and he will join me on these baseball podcasts each week during the baseball season. The baseball season's right around the corner. Luckily, the owners and the players didn't screw it up too badly. But, Bobby, I have so many things I want to discuss with you here. First of all, welcome. And then secondly, the rules. I wish they would have gone back and fixed everything rather than wait and decide to fix some things this year and others after this year. I don't know why they couldn't have done it all in one fell swoop now that we're hopefully past, all the craziness that we've lived through the last 2 years. But, I mean, they put the doubleheaders back at 9 innings, but we still have to live with that ridiculous extra inning rule for another year. I don't know why they couldn't have wiped that out this year. Are you comfortable where the rule things are this year and the rule changes are this year?
Well, yeah, Mike, first off, great memories of us doing really good radio in the past. And
many times.
We'll be able to do it again,
Yes, I look forward to it. I really do. But thank you, and we did. We had a lot of fun. Now, what
the rules.
How do you feel about where we are rules-wise?
I'm with you. It almost seemed like, because they started so late in negotiation, that was the beginning of them thinking about what they needed to negotiate. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They had 4 years to figure out things that they had to negotiate, and they never get it right. You're exactly right. They should have fixed all the rules. That should have been done as soon as the season ended. That could have gotten them to the table to talk about the money, because the rules were just that idea. Let's get on the same page. So I don't like the ghost runner. I do like the 9 innings. I don't like the no slide at second base. The three hitter rule. I think it's really interesting. I think it's really challenging for the manager. And that's why I like it, because they've taken a lot of the challenge out of the game for the manager. But to decide who's going to come in and pitch, knowing he has to pitch at 3 hitters, I mean, that's a challenging effort.
Bobby, you are a very, and have always been a guy who thinks baseball. You were a manager who had that reputation. All right. There are a lot of things they are thinking about dabbling with. I hate the extra inning rule. We know that's going away after next year. I can live with it one more year. They're talking about these other possibilities. First of all, would you like them to legislate against the shift or not?
I think this shift is here to stay. I think it's hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube. I think the fans have lived with it. I think the young players and young fans enjoy it. But I'd like it, personally, I'd like it to be another manager thing where you limit the number of shifts you can make during the game.
Okay.
And that's it. Just figure it out. Whatever the smart guys figure is that number that is workable with that starting pitcher, or however they want to do it. Just say, hey, you got these 8. Use them all in 1 inning, or save 8 until the 9th inning, whatever you want to do. We could criticize you for it. You know what I mean?
Would you be in favor of a pitch clock?
You know what I really like, Mike? I saw a game the other day where the Rays had the catcher and the pitcher communicating with a little wristband from the catcher and a little earpiece in the hat of the pitcher, and it was so clean. It was unbelievable, and it got that 10 seconds per pitch out of there, where the pitcher's shaking his head or looking in for the sign. He's like, the pitcher was walking getting on the rubber and he's already being told what the pitch is. Then he get on the rubber and he pitch. I think that solves that pitch clock idea.
Bobby, you could, if you go back and watch, you put in a tape of the 1960 World Series, you see the pace of the game because the batter never got out of the batter's box. Now they step out on every pitch. I had this conversation with Bernie Williams, who said to me, hey, if I couldn't do that, I would not be comfortable hitting. I want to be able to walk around. I want to put some pressure on the pitcher. I want to step in and step out. I should be allowed to do that. Do you agree that that's part of his mechanism for hitting and he should be allowed? Or would you rather make it like it used to be where basically you stay in the box and you don't get out of the box every pitch?
Well, Mike, once again, a lot of people are making a lot of money, and some of them are being employed by the team, but others being employed by the players to teach a routine for the batter, that they have to have this A, B, C, and D done before they get into the box to hit. So, it would really take an adjustment in the mental training of the individual hitters to keep them in the box. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what it is. It's that taking it to another level. You have to get the little guy off your shoulder so he's not talking to you anymore. The way you tell him to shut up and sit in the dugout and watch this at-bat is by going through a routine that then puts you in the box to do your job.
I'm Mike Francesa. You're listening to Bobby Valentine. We're going to do a baseball podcast together all season, once a week. You can find it, obviously, wherever podcasts are distributed, or it is featured as part of the Bet Rivers Network, so you can get it there. But again, at any Apple or Spotify or any place where they register and distribute podcasts. Bobby, the feeling now is, Buck's back managing, and good, I'm glad to see he's back, okay? There's a feeling that there was no room anymore for a Buck Showalter, for a Bobby Valentine, for the old type of domineering baseball man who was himself a thinking person and a leader, that now they want these guys who listen to the front office, take not suggestions, take printed lineups, really have someone do half their job for them. A, do you think it is as bad as that for most young managers? And B, is there still a place for the Bobby Valentine and the Buck Showalter?
I think that most front offices now, Mike, maybe not 5 and even 10 years ago, but I think most of them now have evolved to the position where they feel there needs to be cooperation between the guy in the uniform and the guy in front of the computer. That there needs to be a way that they work together and not have one dictate to the other the way things are going to be done. So I think everybody will tell you, including Buck and Dusty Baker, and some of the old heads who are out there, that they love information, that the more information they get, the better it is. That's what I always said to people. A gut reaction, if you're a real manager, isn't a spontaneous reaction to something that you see, but it's that regurgitation of all the information you collected to prepare yourself for what you might see, and then trust your gut that what the trainer told you and the stat guy told you and the coach told you, that's what this play's all about. You know what I mean?
Bobby, listen, you guys have always been prepared. You guys always had information. You had it from game experience. You had it from what you remembered managing every game. You had it from computers. You had printouts. the difference now is there's this feeling that the manager gets to the game and there's a lineup sitting at his desk. Here's the suggested lineup tonight. We don't want the pitcher. We don't want this pitcher to see the lineup the second time around. We don't want this guy to ever see the lineup the third time around. That kind of stuff, rather than let the guy manage the game. Do you think that's really going on, or is it overstated?
Okay, I think that it went on. But again, I think it has evolved to a point now where most all of the front offices are doing part of the work, but allowing the people in uniform to be part of the decision-making process.
If the guy knew what you knew, he could make your money and be the manager. I mean, the bottom line is you're the manager for a reason, okay? I mean, that's like a program director telling me how to do my job. Wait a second. You would be getting paid what I'm getting paid if you had to tell me how to do the show. The bottom line is I wouldn't want somebody telling me how to manage my team. I really wouldn't. I would be annoyed by that. Not that I wouldn't take a printout. I'll take a printout, but I'll make the damn decisions. I mean, that's how I look at it, and I don't know how much is real and how, we paint so many of these young managers as being puppets. I don't know. I'm not there. I don't know if they're puppets or not. It seems they are very much reliant and making decisions by rote now, which I don't like. But, this has to be a happy medium. There's still a place for the really smart baseball man.
Oh, I believe that. And I just believe the really smart baseball man ensures the information. But then, as you say, he just uses it the way he feels he should use it, or she, as it might be here in the future, and not being dictated. I agree with you. I don't think anybody, a lot of the young managers, let me just say this, Mike, though, they came up, they learned to manage, they learned as they were a scouting director or wherever they had come from, they learned to use all of that in their decisions. So it's not a foreign place for them to be when they're being told to use the data.
You're listening to Bobby Valentine. I'm Mike Francesa on Baseball Podcast for Bet Rivers, betrivers.com. And, of course, you can find the podcast wherever they distribute podcasts around the nation and obviously throughout the New York metropolitan area. Bobby, I don't like baseball where it's going right now compared to where it was, but you know what? I'm getting old, so maybe that's part of it. But here's the thing that I'm puzzled by. How would you build your pitching staff if you are a general manager, if you're running a team? Clearly, they have devalued the starting pitcher. You go in and you say, I have 1,492 innings to fill. I got 9 times 162. I got to make sure I can fill a lot of those innings and hopefully a lot of them adequately. Would you go out of your way to get the stud starter, or is that a thing of the past? Do you believe in using these openers and then pitch by committee? Where is it now? It seems to me that we have more and more devalued the starter now, to where if you're lucky if he goes, the great one goes 6 innings. The other ones, you're lucky now if they go 4 innings. I mean, it's almost like we have devalued the starting pitcher to the point when you're building a team, why do I want to pay a guy $20 million if I'm not going to let him pitch? I mean, how would you look at it if you're starting a team in terms of putting together a useful staff, especially with the weight on the starting pitcher?
Yeah. Mike, the reason starting pitching has been devalued is because starting pitching became very unreliable. They did give up that 3-run homer in the 5th inning and put your team out of reach. They did get injured at a very alarming rate. I think by necessity, you had to start going for something else. I never was with a team where we were going to actually, pay for the stud starting pitcher. We got Nolan Ryan in Texas, but that wasn't when we were paying. That's when they thought he was at the end of his career. But I'd love to have, 5 guys who could give me 7 innings and give me 30 starts. Are you kidding me? And keep me in those 30 starts where I have a chance to either hold the lead when you leave or come back with one swing of the bat to take a lead. I'd love to be able to have that, but they're just so far and few between. Now, part of the reason for that might be that we haven't developed the starting pitcher, that the starting pitcher hasn't been left out there in the 5th inning when the first 2 guys got on to get through that 5th inning, to figure out how you had to do it. Maybe it's because in college and in the minor leagues, we don't develop the physicality or the mental toughness that you need to, attack major league hitters 15, 18, 24 times a game. It's a tough duty. It really is tough duty.
Would you rather go try to be, what's the key though? Do you go find yourself a bunch of there's a million hard throwers around, we know that. Do you go find yourself a whole bunch of them and stock them in the bullpen and interchange them as some of these teams do and utilize guys for 2 or 3 innings as starting pitchers? Or, obviously you'd like to have Scherzer, but he costs too much money. You'd like to have DeGrom, but he costs too much money and he's still fragile. The bottom line is, let's see if they can get, let's see if the Mets can get 180 innings out of both DeGrom. I didn't even say 180 innings out of DeGrom and Scherzer.
Yeah. I think they, if they could stay healthy, and again, that's the whole thing. The Mets win if they give them 180 innings each. I believe if they could stay healthy and keep a 1-2 punch going, a dominating 1-2 punch, I might add, where it could have an effect on the next day for some hitters. If you have to face those 2 in the first 2 games of the series, you might be able to throw that third starter out there who would be facing a demoralized group of hitters trying to figure out where their swing went. And get your 3-game sweep, if you know what I mean, Mike. Of course you do. But, I wish I had the starting pitching. I think you have to. When I first became the manager of the Mets, I remember doing your show one time. Joe McElvain was the manager. And the first year I came in, we had all new bullpen pitchers. Everyone who was there the year before was gone, and they were all brand new. And what we tried to do is get a variety of pitchers who could mix and match with different types of hitters to allow the starting pitching to be safe in 6th and 7th innings. It didn't turn out because the submariners that we got from the left and the right side weren't as effective as they should be, as the fastball guys who had the high fastball weren't as effective as they could be, and the guys who had the trick pitches that were going to pitch against the opposite side of the plate, they weren't as effective. So we had an idea of how to win, and I think what a lot of teams have done now is not even gone to mixing and matching, have tried to go to overpowering. As you mentioned, get the guy who could throw hard. Let me get this guy 13 pitches. I want him to empty the tank with these 13 pitches for these 3 hitters and get us a couple pop-ups, a broken bat, and a strikeout, and that's a day's work. And that's a lot of hard throwers I think you need in order to really make it happen. Some teams have done it, and they've done it successfully, but it's a hard way to go.
Will you be comfortable employing these openers the way some teams do?
Well, okay. So when the opener came out, unless I'm mistaken, what it was supposed to be is that the closer, the best pitcher in your bullpen, was going to start the game. and then the starter was going to follow him after that. That was that opener concept. Now that has just evolved into what was always there, which we knew as the bullpen game, right? There were just those games throughout history when, they just didn't have a starter for that day. So he either came to the park sick or whatever might have happened, and you went to a bullpen game. I employed them. I think it's just so taxing on the bullpen that you have to have that second and third layer of those types of pitchers in the minor leagues. And again, it takes a lot of planning and developing to make sure you have the guy who can, get inside on this right-handed pull hitter in the minor leagues to replace the guy who gets hurt in the major leagues. Or maybe not even gets hurt in the major leagues, maybe pitches 3 innings the night before and he's not available the next 2 days, and you send him down to bring up his replacement.
Right, and rosters now will start at 28 just for that reason, and you can have more than 13 pitches to start the season because of the lack of spring conditioning this year. So they're going to start. Who knows if they'll stay there? I always thought they should have a taxi squad and let you float a couple of pitches back and forth. You can carry them with you, and then you don't use them every night. You use different guys. Have a little bit. You play. You dress 26, but you can carry 29 as you travel.
Exactly. I remember having that exact conversation with you, and that was your idea way back when. And what I always used to talk about, and I don't know if how we stood on it, but I thought that the roster should be expanded at the beginning of the season and not at the end of the season, which is a conversation for another day. But just because every spring training, you're not sure of guys when you break spring training. If you give an expanded roster for the first month of the season, you see guys play under the big lights at night in front of 30,000 people. You get a real idea of whether or not he's going to help your team that year, as opposed to expanding the roster the last month of the season and taking away competitive edges from teams who develop their roster during the season to have a competitive edge, and now the expanded roster takes the edge totally away from them.
Bobby, clearly, and we're talking with Bobby Valentine. He's part of the Bet Rivers family. So am I. We're going to do podcasts for the baseball season. I'll do 2 during the season this year, and you can get them at betrivers.com and, of course, wherever they distribute podcasts. And 2 things that are very pronounced. Number one, everyone is scared to death of age now. They don't want to give contracts, long-term contracts to guys once they're past 34 years old. Some teams even will tell you even 32 years old. They want younger players. And also, they now feel they have to put a steady diet of rest into the player's season. How about age, and how about resting regular players?
Well, I don't know that I got criticized for anything more when I was in New York, Mike, than the days that I rested Mike Piazza.
Oh, they went nuts, especially if it was Sunday. Especially if it was a Sunday.
Right? You remember the day game after night game? I'd say, oh, this is the day Mike's not playing. And I get everyone calling into your show. Oh, I brought my son to the game.
Whoa.
His favorite player is Mike Piazza. And I would say, but he needs to rest. He's underwater. Before he gets underwater, he needs to rest, is what I used to say. And, now that they do it as a norm, I think is a good thing. I think it's overdone. Popovich in San Antonio, all of a sudden.
Oh, it's way overdone in the NBA. Way overdone.
Right. And I think some of those scheduled days off, come at bad times for hitters. I think a day off is great to recharge, but if we know anything about our game, especially the hitter, and the home run hitter is that they're streaky. That most guys put their season together with streaks of home runs, with streaks of getting a lot of hits.
No question.
That make up for the downtime, And the schedule, I've seen scheduled days off at times where I would say, I can't take him out.
He's red hot.
I can't take him out right now, but it's scheduled. So I guess in the long run, it's better. I guess I'm still not sold on all that scheduled rest routine.
People are not old enough, or maybe they are, but some aren't, to know that Bobby Valentine was a tremendous player, football player and baseball player, and could have been a batting champion if he hadn't suffered a terrible injury. I mean, I actually saw him play. He was a great, great baseball player, a great hitter. It was a different world, though, Bobby. I mean, Now they teach you, now it's about exit velo. Now it's about lifting the baseball. Now a strikeout's okay. Okay, a strikeout's okay. All right, it's not the end of the world to strike out. Okay, now leadoff hitters strike out 110 times a year, and everyone tries to lift the baseball. Your thoughts?
Well, again, I just look back at 40 years that I was trying to figure things out. And, I tried to defend Pete Incaviglia, who is a player on my team for 5 years. He struck out 175 times and he hit 35 home runs. And I would say, well, a strikeout's only one out. And I'd get killed for that kind of mentality. And I believe with some hitters in the lineup, that could actually be the way you go about getting the most runs from a lineup. But I think there's other guys in the lineup who need to be different types of hitters. They just make it too easy on the pitcher sometimes that he's facing the same hitter time and time again. Again, momentum is such a big thing in the game of baseball. And when the little hitter takes the momentum away from the guy who's striking out three guys in a row with a line drive over second base, and now he's pitching out of a stretch instead of a windup, boy, you just changed the momentum of that character who was on the mound. And we don't do enough of that in our planning when we're planning to do battle as to how to create and maintain momentum, and then how to stop the momentum of the bad guys when they're rocking and rolling. And I don't think you could have one way of doing that swing, that at-bat. The swing's going to probably be the same, but the at-bat has to be approached differently.
How about, we mentioned early on, and we're talking about Bobby Valentine, the Mike Francesa Podcast is on Bet Rivers Network, will be each week, and one of my podcasts will feature Bobby Valentine, and we'll do baseball each week through the season, with a lot on the Mets and the Yankees, who we'll get to in a minute. Bobby, the handling a bullpen, everyone will tell you, managers have to do two things. They got to keep their team somewhat happy, keep the guys who hate the other guys away from the guys who hate the other guys, and, keep some kind of harmony, and handle a bullpen, and guys can or can't handle a bullpen. And now they've made it even tougher on you with the implementation of a rule that I don't love. Now, you say, I think you like it a little bit. I don't love that rule because I don't like rules that are made that, to me, there doesn't seem to be a reason for that rule. It's arbitrary. And let a pitcher seek how many guys he's going to face or not face and stuff like that. But it has handcuffed or can handcuff a manager. How tough is that made it for the manager in the bullpen?
Well, I tried to sit there and figure it because I never lived with it where I had to make the decisions myself. But it seems to me that a lot of managers kind of get caught with that rule. Understanding that the first two guys might be okay, but that third guy owns this hitter, and you can't afford one of those loud sounds in the gaps at this time of the game. But I think that, and also the 1 out, where if you end the inning, you can come out of the game too. Where I've seen a lot of managers trap, believing that this guy can get this 1 out, and that's all I need him for. But he walks that guy, or he hits him with a pitch, or the guy bloops one in because he dominated him, but he broke his bat and he blooped one in. Well, now he has to stay out there for another 2 hitters, and I've seen games get away from managers and teams with that one guy mentality who has to stay in longer than one.
Yeah, listen, handling bullpens is tough anyway. I mean, that's just all there is to it. I mean, it's tricky. You got to be one step ahead. It's fascinating, and it's something that, hey, there's always, it lends itself to the classic second guess of a manager, because he's either gets the guy out or he was wrong. I mean, that's all there is to it. Yeah. I mean, so, it's always right. Failure is always right there. I mean, you can be right and be wrong, okay? I mean, that's just the way it works. I mean, so you can be right a lot and be wrong. So it's always a very fascinating thing to watch. And it makes it classic. That's why I don't like anything that puts any arbitrary rules on decisions. I'd rather see the guy be able to make his own decision and not be, well, I had to do this because of this. I have to do this because of the rule. I mean, to me, that's why I don't like it. I want a guy to leave a guy in because he wants to leave the guy in,
I hear you. Yeah. Or make a move because you want to make it, not because you have to make it. Yeah. I'm with you.
Are you okay with, I mean, I was always a DH guy. I mean, only for 2 reasons. One, it keeps the older hitting star in the game. And 2, most pitchers don't take hitting seriously. I mean, a couple do. I mean, I don't mind watching DeGrom hit, okay? I didn't mind watching Newcomb hit or Don Drysdale or Bob Gibson hit. But a lot of guys went up there like Hank Aguirre and never fouled the ball off, okay? I mean, so those are the guys you didn't like, and watching them run the bases is almost comical. That's even worse. And then guys got hurt on the bases, which really started to be the downfall. When guys get hurt when they go on the base paths, they said, wait a second, I'm paying this pitcher $20 million. Now he gets hurt on the base path. So they didn't want any part of that. So you knew it was going to happen. Are you okay with the DH now that it's there?
Once again, it was inevitable. All the people who, not all, but most of the people in the front offices today, most of the young managers today, Mike, they never played a game in their high school, college, minor league career where the pitcher hit.
Yep.
So they don't know that game. So there's no reason to expect them to be in favor of the pitcher hitting. And, I get it. Most of the pitchers grew up not hitting because they had DH leagues wherever they were, traveling and playing in high school and playing in college. So to expect them to be able to do it is, I think, a great expectation. And I'm glad we have a universal set of rules.
The Yankees are 91.5. That's their number for the season, to win 91.5 games. The Mets are actually below them. A lot of people might have thought they were ahead of them. They're not. They're 90.5. Those numbers at Bet Rivers. 90.5 for the Mets, 91.5 for the Yankees. If you want to use something just to use as a barometer, the Dodgers are first at 98.5. On the low end, you have teams like the Orioles at 61. But to give you an example of what you run the gamut from, the highest is the Dodgers, who last year were actually over 100, which I'd never seen before. This year, they're at 98.5. Toronto's at 92.5. Houston's at 92.5. The White Sox are at 93.5. Just to give you an example. Let's touch on the Mets for a second. First of all, Buck, And then, of course, this team with a 1-2-3 pitching punch, the likes of which any guy would dream of as a manager.
Oh, absolutely. I'm over that number with the Mets, by the way, and not only over looking at the team as it stands right now, but I think that most teams watched the season last year and saw Atlanta at the halfway point pick up multiple pieces that allowed them to win a championship and be the world champions.
Really changed the team. They changed the team.
Right, really changed the team, right?
Yeah.
Halfway through, boom. Now, and that was after losing maybe one of the best players in baseball in Acuna. And I think that most teams saw that and understood it and are going to be on the prowl. And I'll bet dollars to bottle caps that Steve Cohen is ready to spend halfway through this season.
Well, I don't think there's any question. They'll go after whatever they need, whether it's going to be a bullpen person or maybe another RBI bat. When you look at the Mets right now, bullpen, obviously an issue. Maybe you could be looking for that one more legitimate RBI guy to balance off that lineup. What, if anything, worries you about the Mets right now? Obviously, you need health with the top of the rotation. You're looking at a 1-2 punch. Scherzer's amazing. Scherzer's already throwing 6 innings. I mean, he's throwing 6 innings. You got to like Scherzer. He goes out there and pitches. I mean, the guy's he's throwing 6 innings in spring training a week in. The guy's unbelievable.
He really is unbelievable. He reminds me of Nolan Ryan that I had, where, Nolan came to spring training on March 1st, never came in February because the basic agreement said, you only had to report at March 1st. And you remember Dick Moss was his agent, who is also Marvin Miller's. Anyway, so he'd get there the first day and throw 5 innings on March 1st. Never have a bullpen in spring training, never throw batting practice prior to that. So some of these guys are really different, and I think the biggest challenge for the Mets, and this is obvious, everyone knows it, and that is how that team comes together. It's a really different team than they've had in the past, with monumentally different leadership.
Yes.
And counting Buck Showalter, but also guys who are acquired in trade. So it's going to be interesting how the team comes together, and if it takes a real hiccup for them to realize what they're supposed to be doing as a team.
Well, let's be honest. Lindor's influence was enormous on that team last year, and it wasn't positive. That's all there is to it. I mean, it just was not positive. And that team changed. It was a lovable team the year before. It was not a lovable team last year. It was not a friendly team. They had fights on the team last year, and he had a miserable season. I mean, we know he's got ability. He hit some home runs late to show you that he's still got ability. He had an adjustment in New York, which everybody has. That's why I said don't give him the contract early in the year, because everybody bombs early in New York. There's no one who came here ever and hit the ground running. I don't care who it is. Nobody comes here who's got to prove themselves and hits the ground running in New York. It doesn't happen. And he didn't either. He had a very rough year last year, but clearly he wants to be a leader. He really wants to set the pace for the team. It's obvious.
Without a doubt. And I think that he's going to have some competition in that clubhouse. And that's why I think that that's challenging. I got to make a comment about Lindor, Mike, because you lived through the nightmares of seasons that I lived through when we got a switch hitting second baseman from Cleveland who was an all-star for multiple years.
Who I never saw anything except get 3 extra base hits. Every time I saw him play at Yankee Stadium, he got 3 extra base hits. He came to the Mets, he couldn't play.
So that's Robbie Alomar you're talking about.
And Carlos Bayaga both. And Bayaga, too. They both did the same thing. They came to New York, really throw in Juan Samuel, and they did it to 3 guys.
Yeah, but But those three switch-hitting middle infielders from Cleveland all happen to be from Puerto Rico. I get shivers when I watch Lindor and remember Carlos and Robbie, who I loved as people, greatest guys on the team ever. But to see them go from all-star Hall of Fame talent on the field to, I don't think he can play today because he can't hit this pitcher. Oh, what a difference, right?
Hey, I never saw, first of all, people, I mean, they have to know how good Alomar was. Alomar wasn't good. He was all-time good before he came to the Mets. He was all-time. I mean, he was immortal good, that guy. Yeah. And then Baerga used to come to Yankee Stadium and wear the Yankees out. I mean, every single time he came here, he looked like an old man as soon as he got here.
How did that happen? It's one of the mysteries of my lifetime.
I don't know. And it was and let's be honest, when they traded for Juan Samuel, he had 400 total bases the year before he came here, and he couldn't hit here either.
Didn't they ever throw him sliders in Philadelphia?
But listen, Lindor is, you can see, a complicated guy. I mean, he's going to be a complicated guy for Buck. He's going to be a complicated guy for anybody. We know he's got a world of talent. He's a flashy fielder. He's got a lot of talent. He's got power. We know he's got tools. I mean, you can see it a mile away. He was awful last year. Would you expect a bounce-back year, or are you concerned for a bounce-back year?
I'm concerned only because of what I already mentioned, that there might be something in that drive from Cleveland or that flight from Cleveland to New York that happens. I just can't figure it out. But it should be a bounce-back year without a doubt. He should get 200 hits and score 100 runs and just take it from there. And if he does and gets off to a good start, Mike, he will be able to be that leader and have leadership presence. But you know it better than even me, that in New York this year, with expectations what they are for the team, if he doesn't get off to a good start, it's going to be miserable for him.
They're going to kill him.
I'm talking about miserable.
Oh, they will boo him. They will boo him from Jump Street. They will boo him. Now, let's be equal opportunity and do it to the other team. The Yankees are more puzzling than the Mets because everyone expected them to just go wild, and they didn't financially. And listen, never count the Yankees out financially, okay? I mean, I think they're far more careful in the Hal Steinbrenner era than they were in the George era. I think that's part of it. I think Hal has a budget in his head that he lives by, but that doesn't mean he won't spend anything. It just means he's going to be careful. But how about Gleyber Torres? He's now reached the point where it's now or never. Sanchez is gone. Okay, he can't get beat up anymore. He's gone. Now Torres is going to be the guy. We saw him look great early, hit 38 home runs, looked like he was going to be a monster, and now we know he's not a shortstop. That's over with. But is he the player that we thought he was?
Well, I think he is. And I really loved him as a hitter those early years. And I thought he was as good a hitter as he was in baseball.
Wow.
Something happened. Something obviously happened. And he got heavier.
And shortstop happened where he wasn't comfortable at shortstop. No question.
It might have just affected the entire life, couldn't hit because he couldn't play shortstop, or he no longer was a shortstop, so he no longer was that person, had that image of himself that he used to have. But I think he's going to bounce back in a really big way.
What do you think of the Yankees' time? 91.5 is the number for them. They're right in the middle of the mix in the division. They're not the favorites. We know that. It's a tough division. We know that. There's question marks at certain positions. There's things that have to happen that we know. There's still some issues to be brought up. They did make, I thought, a puzzle. I mean, I didn't like the move for. I don't mind getting an athletic shortstop. I didn't like the move for Donaldson. I think he's way past his prime, and I don't want another right-handed hitter. I didn't like that myself. They've puzzled me with some moves. Where do you think the Yankees are?
Well, again, you know better than everyone. The couple decades of Yankee dynasties revolved around the bullpen, and I think that 90, if it's going to be above that for the Yankees, it rests on the shoulders of Chapman. And last year, Chapman kind of skated in that his reliability was not what was needed for that Yankee team.
Nope.
And yet, it wasn't put on his shoulders. You could bet it's going to be put on his shoulders this year.
I don't trust him anymore. I admit it. I don't trust him anymore.
So, yeah, okay. So you see what I mean?
Yep.
That if he's going to be something other than the world-class dominant left-handed superhuman that they signed him to be, I think the Yankees are going to struggle. Or Booney's going to have to remake the strategy of a Yankee bullpen, which will be foreign to everyone who covers the team and everyone who roots for the team, because Joe established how you set a bullpen, and Yankee fans and Yankee people who follow and cover the team are used to a systematic system coming out of the bullpen.
Yankees had two things. They had incredible postseason bullpens led by a closer who was brilliant, but it wasn't just him. They had mix and match guys. They had Graham Lloyd when they needed him against Atlanta. They had Stanton, and they had Ramiro Mendoza, and you can go down the line. They had so many guys that you could count on who were big in big spots that did just, sensational jobs. Even in '96, you can bring in guys like Weathers who did a good job. They shut down. They were trailing games and shut down the team for 5 and 6 innings so they could make a comeback. You know how deep that bullpen was for them. They were great, and then they could chip away. And that's what I loved about those teams is they didn't have to hit a home run to have a rally. They could have a classic rally with a dink and a double and a line drive here or there, and score 3 runs that way.
He had magic to him, and I really believe that Mariano had one of the magic wands. Number 2 had another magic wand, and that's what is expected in the Bronx for Chapman to have that magic wand. And we'll see how that works for them.
All right, right now, as we get ready to start the season, we're talking with Bobby Valentine. Best team in the National League. Are you along with everyone else and think it's the Dodgers?
The Dodgers might have, their second string might be as good as top 10 team. It's amazing. The Dodgers are what a wealth of talent. Yeah.
And it just seems to it seems to just show up. There seems to be a new rookie every year, and then they go out and get guys, and then they show up with another guy who's unbelievable every year. It's amazing how much talent they seem to have at their doorstep. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And, again, I think Stevie Cohen has an eye to the West. That, that he wants the Mets to surpass. And it's going to be interesting how those great players, if they start coming east, young man, and making the Mets something that the Yankees really have had in that city.
And it's hard for me to ever really take the White Sox seriously. I'm sorry. It's too many years of trying to, but they are considered the team to beat now in the American League this year. I don't know if I can really jump on board with the White Sox yet. That's a little hard for me to do,
Well, the one thing that I think they have going for them is that, talking with Tony La Russa, he says, I got a group of guys and they really like each other. They really and truly like each other. And, you watch them play and they're not household names yet for a lot of baseball fans, but it seems that they do enjoy other teammates' success, and if they're enjoying their success, that they're picking them up when they're down. And when that kind of atmosphere is alive and well on a team, the team is usually pretty good.
There's some really unbelievable young players in baseball right now. There really are some amazing young players. Which one would stop you in your tracks on the field right now where you'd say, I got to stop and watch this guy right here?
Wow. Well, the Acuna kid in Atlanta, is just so phenomenal. He's coming back from an injury, and I suspect he's going to come back without missing a beat.
Remarkable talent. Oh,
just what he can do, and do it with the effortlessness of Roberto Clemente, that he just flows through his swing and his throw and his run. He's one of many, but my gosh, there are so many good young players out there. We need a whole show, and we should do a whole show on just guys under 3 years of experience in the big leagues. There's phenomenal talent.
And how many of these players, Bobby, Spanish-speaking players from all different places on the map, and how amazingly talented they are, and the amount of talent that comes out of these countries is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch. As we all know, a lot of the Latin American countries sign kids or Major League Baseball signs players at 16 years old. And they start to sharpen their teeth on a little better brand of baseball at an earlier age, and so they're 21 in the big leagues, and everyone thinks they're young, but they've already put 1,500 at bats underneath their belt, when they got there. So, another thought for another talk is this idea of an international draft, which would kind of preclude a lot of the early development in these countries of young players, and I think that would be bad for baseball.
So you're not for a draft? You don't want to see one?
No, I don't want to see one.
Well, listen, pleasure to have you on. We'll do it each and every week during the baseball season. Look forward to it. Bobby Valentine will join me for a podcast each week during the season. Bobby, hope everything's going well. How is life? Good?
Life is spectacular, Mike, and we will have time to share each other's thoughts. Your kids must be getting big now.
Yes.
I'm sure there's a travel team or two in some sport that they're playing.
Well, I got a tight end. I have a senior in high school who's a tight end on a good team. So that's number one. Then I have one younger than that. So he's going to be a senior this year. 6'1", 210-pound tight end for Chaminade. So he's a good player.
Great.
Well, listen, good to talk to you, Bobby. We'll chat next week. Thanks very much.
Yeah, you're the man. Thanks.
All right.
Great being with you.
Bobby V, and Bobby's part of the Bet Rivers group. We can hear the Mike Francesa podcast, and we'll do 2 each week. We'll do one during the baseball season with Bobby V. We'll do a Football Friday one during the football season, and then we'll do another one that'll take in whatever it takes in, a lot of different things, all the big events, everything else, whatever it might be, the Masters. I love to do golf every week anyway, and or the Kentucky Derby, or the playoffs, or like this week, the Final Four. So obviously, there's a whole lot to do, and we'll be doing it. The podcast is featured on Bet Rivers, on the Bet Rivers Network. And remember, all the odds we use is from Bet Rivers, and you can make all your wagers in New York at Bet Rivers. And if you're listening in Jersey or Connecticut, make your bets on PlaySugarHouse.com. So it's good to be back. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be fun during the season. There's a lot to talk about. We got a lot of different things to do. As I said, I will do the baseball with Bobby V, who's always got a wealth of talent. We got, we're just touching the surface today. We got plenty to dig in. We'll give you plenty of over-unders and predictions before the season starts. We'll do that on next week's show. So, again, you can get the podcast wherever podcasts are distributed. Apple, Spotify, all the different places. You know them better than I do. And this is a podcast that is featured on the Bet Rivers Network and will be each and every week. We'll see you next week, folks.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Francesa Podcast.